As I mentioned last episode, my wife and I are moving to Houston. She got a great job there. My law firm has an office in Houston. We're currently in Chicago. So we're just making the switch on down there, and we're looking for a house right now. And we just went under contract on a house a few weeks ago, and we plan to close about a week from today. We'll get back to that deal later in the video since it's going to be a very significant financial move for me. But in the meantime, if you're new to this series, every single month on the first of the month, I document my progress or lack thereof as I attempt to reach a $1 million net worth before I reach 30 years old. I'm currently 25, and I'm also trying to reach a $30,000 per year passive income so I can achieve a light financial independence. So if you're interested in following along on the journey, then be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. But anyways, last month was pretty expensive, at least relative to my normal spending. I had a couple of trips. One of them, I was going down to Houston and taking a look at houses, which I showed on this channel recently. If you want to go take a look at that, I'll be sure to link it below. So that weekend trip was about $1,000 right there. Then on top of that, I had another trip that I took this last weekend all the way out to England. I actually took my dad for his 60th birthday, a very belated 60th birthday. His 60th birthday was actually last year, but he's always wanted to go to Tank Fest out in Bovington, England. It's about 3 hours west of London. I've always wanted to go as well, so it seemed like a nice birthday present to get him. We got it last year, but we ended up canceling that trip. So we sort of redid it this year and actually went, and it was a really cool trip. So the trip cost quite a bit of money, but thankfully I was able to subsidize a large portion of the total cost by using 100,000 Chase points from my Chase Sapphire Preferred bonus sign up that I had from quite a few months ago. But I used all those points to pay for the majority of the airline tickets. So that really saved us a bunch of money, about $1,000 all told. But the trip was really cool. In short, they do this big thing every single year at this tank museum where they drive around a bunch of tanks from all different eras, including some very rare ones where there really aren't any other running counterexamples. So it's a very cool, very nerdy event, but it's a very unique one at that just because of the sheer size of their collection of tanks. And it just is also really cool to be around giant running machines, but it's probably best characterized as a boyish activity. So it's probably not for everyone, but I definitely enjoyed it. But besides the trip, I've been shelling out quite a bit of money for this Houston deal, since you have to pay for inspections, pay for appraisals, pay for the loan fees, pay for surveys, and all those great things that you need to actually buy a piece of real estate. You got to come to a real estate deal with quite a bit of money, no matter which way you spin it. Whether that's your money or someone else's money, though quite often there's quite a bit of your money involved. But if all goes well with the deal, it'll be well worth it. And then while I was doing all of this spending, the market decided to add insult to injury by tanking. What are you gonna do? Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the numbers and compare them to last month to see what the damage is. As always, let's start with the good stuff, the assets. I have been trying to keep a close eye on this cash position as we approach closing. We're scheduled to close on July 8th for this house. So as long as that actually stays in line, we're gonna have to have some cash to close. I've already paid a few grand in earnest money that will go towards the eventual closing, but gonna have to fork over probably another 15 grand or so. So just making sure that we have enough cash ready to go. Anything that's not already covered by my existing cash pile is probably gonna come from my M1 Finance margin or from my HELOC, since both are relatively low interest, although they are variable rate interest, so I gotta be careful. And I would be looking to pay those back pretty quickly, but that's where my extra liquidity would come from. But because of the upcoming deal and all the spending I was doing last month, I really didn't add a whole lot to my stock holdings, at least from a cash perspective. I didn't add a lot of new funds like I normally do. I normally add a few grand to my stock portfolio every month, but I wasn't really able to do that this month. So the market took a nice stab at my holdings, especially in my M1 Finance account, which is my largest sort of portion of my overarching stocks. That said, I still am adding around 10% of my income each month to my 401k, so there is always some sort of more passive approach being added to. Meanwhile, my active holdings are typically getting more funding as well, just not so much this month. You'll notice this new line item, that's my earnest money deposit. So that will be going towards the new property. So long as I close, that's gonna go towards that. So I count it as an asset here. But after all the damage, the stock, and to a lesser extent, the crypto market, since I have a small crypto holding down here that I think I lost something like 50% of over the last month. Once you factor all that in, my assets are down to $751,950.19. And now onto liabilities. I have some carryover credit card balances that will be getting paid off swiftly, but A lot of that is from the recent trips, so we'll make sure to get those taken care of shortly. But otherwise, the last of the student loans rolled in from my wife's program. She'll be done in the next month or so, and then we'll be on to Houston after that, and she'll start making a full-time salary, so we'll be getting to paying these down over the next couple of years. And we'll see how long the government keeps kicking the can down the road in keeping interest frozen on these, because right now we don't have to pay anything, no interest is accruing, so it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to pay these down, at least from our perspective. We've got other debts to worry about in the meantime, like our HELOC balance, which is on a variable rate, so the interest rate is climbing. It was as low as 2.25% interest. Now I think it's up to 3.75, so it's getting more significant, and it's gonna make less and less sense to keep balances held out on this thing. However, it still is relatively low, especially when you compare it to inflation and when you compare it to the potential opportunity cost of not being able to invest that money. But for now, that balance is down to nearly $49,000, and we have something like $75,000 that we could take out at any given time if we wanted to, so long as they don't do anything crazy like freeze the HELOC, but they haven't done that to this point, and they didn't the last sort of mini crisis we had back in March of 2020. So we'll see if the going gets rough, we'll see what happens to that. That is always a risk with HELOCs. There's a chance that they freeze your ability to take out the money. So we're keeping that in mind. But regardless, for now, we have about $75,000 in potential liquidity that we could pull out just from that HELOC. And that's not including the around $30,000 that we could pull from our M1 finance margin if we wanted to do that. That is also at a pretty low interest rate, I think also below 4% still. But in total, that leaves us with $633,303.45 in liabilities, which means our net worth has fallen to $118,648.74, which is a drop of over $19,000. Which means our debt ratio has ballooned up to 84.22%, though our passive income remains at about $1,100 per month. Putting this month's numbers together did hurt a bit. But as for what's next, obviously the house is going to take the biggest priority over the next month or two, probably beyond that, because it does need some pretty significant work, and I'm coordinating contractors right now, getting quotes, trying to get most of this work done in July if possible, so we can make the move down to Houston in August before my wife's job starts in September. Right now we're under contract for a 4-bedroom house. I'll do a much more thorough breakdown in the coming weeks, but for now, just as a general overview, the property is currently under contract for $285,000, which coincidentally is the same price I paid for this townhome here in Chicago a year ago when interest rates were quite a bit lower. And this house in Houston is also quite a bit bigger, and it's a proper single-family home, not a townhome with shared walls with neighboring units and no lawn. We're also getting a $7,000 credit from the seller, which effectively offsets some of the sales price. So it's really more like we're buying the property for $278,000. We're using 5% down financing, so we're really not bringing a lot of cash to actually buy the property itself. However, we're probably going to put something like $50,000 to $60,000 into the property. We're going to be replacing the AC units. We're going to be doing some significant cosmetic upgrades, flooring throughout the house, paint, all that good stuff. But all in all, it's going to be a pretty significant rehab, although we're not restructuring things, we're not blowing out a bunch of walls, at least that's not in the plans, since it's really overall a pretty good layout. It's just mostly cosmetic things and some of those larger system issues, like replacing the air conditioning units because they're quite old. Again, I'll have exact details on the rehab and the whole cost breakdown when we actually go through this thing. But so long as the market doesn't completely tank, which I mean, it could, that's always a possibility, especially now in a rising rate environment that could exacerbate things like that. But so long as things sort of hold their current positions, we should be adding some pretty significant value with the rehab, and that should probably bring the property value into the low to mid 300s. That could be a bit of an overstatement. It might actually be more closer to 300,000 than 350,000. So what I'm really trying to say is this rehab isn't going to be especially profitable, if at all. It's probably going to be more like a sort of savings account. We're moving cash into equity into the property, which isn't all that great, but hey, it's better than burning the money, I suppose, and we're getting a pretty nice house out of it in the meantime, so I think it should work out all right. But as always, time will tell. But if it is a disaster, we'll make up the money in due time, because thankfully, Houston housing is very affordable, at least relative to many other major markets. But I'm definitely excited about this deal. This will be my 4th property and will allow me to finally rent out this property that I'm filming from right now once we move out. So we'll be able to increase our overall portfolio leverage by being able to produce more income, since we'll have more properties to actually use. It's just pretty expensive to buy the property up front, even when you're using a low down payment loan. But if you like this video, definitely like it, since that would help the channel out a lot, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes of this series. Thanks as always for your support, and until next time, take care.